welcome to another episode of the SpookyBarberBabes podcast, a YouTube edition. I am Briana. I know you don't really hear my voice very often, and of course, to my left here is the lovely green-haired and green-lipped today, Krystal. You hear her voice most often, but today that is going to be different for several reasons.
So I have been quarantining for the last week because of COVID. Yay. If you guys listen to any of the episodes that we've put out the beginning of this year, my voice was sounding really crappy. I thought it was just, cold weather, whatever.
Various winter things.
The usual. But nope, my house was infected with COVID. So with me being on quarantine and half dying to hacking up a lung, which again, I will not wish this on my worst enemy. I'm going to conserve my voice so y'all don't hear me hacking up a lung. And for those of you that are actually watching this, if you see me just practically like fall off and just ignore me, I'm hacking up a lung. I've muted myself. I'm going to try my best.
At least discussed ahead of time that she will attempt in all her power to mute ahead of time.
Yeah,
to avoid the editing fiasco that would be.
It sucks. Like, that's why I feel so bad and I want to apologize. Like, I know I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna put this out, I'm gonna put that on, I'm gonna put this out. I've been a couch potato for the last week.
It should also be put out there that despite COVID quarantining or not, in real life we both work full-time, so there is that. So that is why we haven't really put out any YouTube version since like October, because girl, we did a lot in October and we need to like have a legitimate non-recorded Zoom session to calendar September and October, so then that way we're not
going crazy
people. So today we are discussing the ever so infamous case of Jodi Arias and Travis Alexander. Now, if you have not heard of this case,
you've been living under a rock.
Fair warning, graphic details, a lot of sexual stuff involved when it comes to their case. If you do any kind of watching of the documentaries and stuff like that, there are 2 documentaries and 1 Lifetime movie, which for a Lifetime movie, it's not bad. It's not good, but it's not bad. Like, there's a few details changed here and there, but for the most part, they do an okay job of portraying kind of what her like craziness level was, as well as their relationship and some of the main details and this, that, and the third. But and then the main documentary that I kind of actually just recently watched is very neutral, whereas the other one is more like basically painting her in a very good light. Which
one's that? Because I know the one on Discovery Plus, it seemed
there's
more
2
neutral.
that use the exact same image. So like if you look up Jodi Arias on Discovery Plus, there's 3 things that come up. The first one is the 3 parts documentary, the middle one is the Lifetime movie, and then the one all the way to the right is the one that's like her lead defense attorney, like she couldn't hurt a fly.
Oh, I think that's the one that I'd seen, because that one came out 2020?
I don't know, something like that. But yeah, so you'll learn there's a lot of details here and there. I think people find this case so frustrating just because of Jodi as a person. She very much mirrors a lot of Casey Anthony, Ted Bundy even vibes, just in her overall confidence in herself, which isn't a bad thing, but it also didn't help her in the long run either. So I think that's ultimately why I think this case is so frustrating to a lot of people, just because she was just so adamant that like, oh, I'm not going to spend a day in prison.
I was gonna say another thing that kind of frustrated people was that, I mean, you got to think about it. It almost took 10 years to put her away.
Yeah. Because the overall murder, there's going to be a lot of kind of year details here and there that are going to get a little confusing, because the overall murder happened in 2008. So her and Krystal and I were 18. We were graduating high school.
Actually, when he was murdered, we had both probably were graduating.
Yeah, we were pretty much like right around high school graduation.
Yeah.
But the overall trial aspect wasn't until, well, the first initial trial aspect wasn't until 2013. So why it took that 5-year gap, I think I mean, it's up in the air. It's how the judicial system works, I guess. But yeah. So, but before we get into the Jodi Arias Travis Alexander case, we will take a quick ad break from Hydro Jug and we will be right back to it. You guys are anything like me, you like to stay hydrated throughout the day. So how do you do that? Do you bring a 10-pound lunchbox with you to work with 5 LaCroix and 3 throwaway plastic water bottles? Because that's what I was doing and it kind of sucked. So how do you fix that? I recently partnered with the Hydro Jug, and let me tell you, this thing has become one of my new favorite items. Not only does it hold almost a half gallon of water, but the wide mouth opening allows me to fit huge bar-size ice cubes in there. I can also fit an entire lemon in there if I wanted to. The neoprene sleeve on the outside comes off and is machine washable. Not only that, but the bottle, the cap, and the straw on the inside are all dishwasher safe. I have so many tumblers that are either glitter or epoxy or decal that I have to hand wash. So not only does this thing get you hydrated, it saves you time. Think this style's too girly? Not a problem. They come out with different colors and styles almost weekly. So there really is something for everyone. Check out the affiliate link in the description below to get your Hydro Jug today. And thank you to the Hydro Jug for partnering with me as a brand ambassador. All right. So first things first, I'm going to start with the victim in this case, just because he is ultimately the one that we really want to give some light to here. So Travis Alexander was born July 28th, 1977. Oddly enough, the day before someone over here, which is odd.
The day
we'll get into that later.
And years before.
Yeah, several years before. He was one of 8 siblings. His parents were meth addicts and would often leave him and his siblings alone for days at a time, often without food and means to fend for themselves. So as Travis got older, he and his siblings were taken in by his grandparents in Riverside, California. His grandparents were heavily involved in the Mormon church, and as he was growing up, Travis adapted that as part of his lifestyle. He enjoyed growing up with a stable community of church-driven people, and one of the rites of passage of Mormons is to go on a 2-year mission once they turn 18. So after Travis completed his 2-year mission in Denver, he returned to California, where he became an employee of a company called Prepaid Legal Services, which is a multi-level marketing company. So basically, they provide clients with various legal services for varying levels of yearly fees, but then they also recruit people to work underneath of them and recruit other salespeople as well. So you basically make more money the more people you recruit. And so on and so forth.
Pyramid scheme.
Yeah, otherwise known as a pyramid scheme. So this company was also heavily Mormon based in terms of its employees, because as Mormon missionaries, they're used to recruiting people and getting people to join. So an MLM career concept is pretty much perfect because it's pretty much fairly similar. All right. So in 2004, Travis would later move to Mesa, Arizona, which is also a very Mormon-based community. It's actually the largest Mormon-based community next to Salt Lake City, Utah. So Travis made a lot of friends working for Prepaid Legal Services, as well as within the Mormon church, since that was largely part of that community. So by the time Travis was 29, he was doing really well for himself. He was good looking. He had a lot of friends. He owned a home. He rented 2 rooms out to friends in that home. He was writing a blog basically about his rough upbringing and how he overcame it and became really successful. He was very charismatic, loved public speaking, loved making people laugh. He was definitely kind of a life of the party type of guy. And he was basically at a point that he wanted to meet the one and kind of settle down and meet his future wife. So when you're involved in the Mormon church, obviously when you're looking for your future partner, you'd probably want your future partner to be Mormon as well, so that you share kind of the same values. So it's important to mention that within the Mormon religion, the law of chastity is a huge part of the belief system, that sex is only to be had between a husband and a wife. So absolutely no premarital sex is allowed at all. Well, Travis had a very hidden sex life. He was described as a very sexual person. He had to hide pretty much a large part of his life from his friends in the Mormon community, and he wanted them all to pretty much believe that he was a virgin. Only a very, very close friend of his really kind of knew the truth. mostly just because he confided in him. So
you think the roommates would have known too?
you'd think
Just
so.
saying.
You'd think so.
They probably did know, to be honest with you. They probably were just like, oh.
Yeah, it's just kind of one of those, like, we're just not going to touch on that. Yeah. So getting into the reason we're all here. Jodi Arias was born July 9th, 2 days after my birthday.
Oh,
I know.
Why didn't I make that connection sooner?
But she was born in 1980 in Eureka, California. She was born to an otherwise middle-class family, to Sandy and Bill Arias, and her father owned a restaurant in town. So they weren't rich, they weren't poor, they were just kind of middle class, getting by, working family. Jodi was raised otherwise as a Christian, but her parents didn't really force it on their kids. They just kind of said, okay, well, you know, what they want to do with it is what they want to do with it. But they did, in fact, enforce some sort of religion in terms of daily household rules, as far as a curfew, 10 commandments, etc. Her mother said that Jodi was a good student. She was always reading, and she actually even encouraged her to read and kind of better educate herself about the world around her. So when Jodi was in middle school, her parents discovered that she was actually attempting to grow weed in her room, and they called the sheriff's office essentially on themselves, basically kind of ratted her out. So that's kind of when Jodi's main form of rebellion started. Jodi claims that her childhood, starting around the age of 7, was marked with child abuse, and how she and her siblings were beaten with wooden spoons and belts and shoved into pianos, and her parents deny any of this. Her mother's even...
Didn't the siblings deny it too?
Yeah, and her mother's even said she has no idea where she got this idea that her childhood was so rough, because it's not true. So basically, when Jodi was around dating age, she pretty much always had a boyfriend. She would pretty much go from guy to guy in between, with really no breaks in between. She was kind of boy crazy. So Jodi went to Eureka Union High School until she dropped out in the 11th grade and pretty much just earned her GED. It was around that time that she basically took an interest in photography. She enjoyed taking pictures of everything, which is ironic when it comes to this case. And as we'll find out later on, she always had a camera with her, and she really felt like she was developing an eye to potentially do photography as a career. Well, in 2001, Jodi moved to Palm Desert, where she started working for Montana Inn and Spa as a waitress. And she got involved with a guy named Daryl Brewer, who was the resort's food and beverage manager. So she quickly began spending a lot of time with Daryl and his son from her previous marriage. They even bought a house together. And the more that the relationship went on, Jodi realized that the future with Daryl wasn't exactly what she wanted. Despite being great with the son she already had, she wanted kids of her own. And Daryl being older and previously married, it was kind of looking that that wasn't really a possibility for the future of their relationship. So around this time, Jodi and Daryl also started to have some financial issues. So in addition to waitressing, in February of 2006, Jodi came to work for prepaid legal services. The more she would kind of delve into the world of legal services and sales, she really did grow to like it. However, the financial issues didn't really stop, and her and Daryl ended up parting ways shortly after Jodi ended up meeting Travis. Despite having been with Daryl since 2002, it wasn't worth it. After she had met Travis, it was just, she knew. We'll get to that. Considering how Jodi would react later on to, Travis's breakup, it's kind of ironic that the breakup with Daryl really didn't have that much animosity. It was fairly mutual.
I'm wondering if it's because of there was issues in the relationship that were like, she was like, oh, I'm doing everything and we're not going everywhere. So I'm thinking like the difference between the breakup with Daryl and the breakup with Travis was she wanted out of the one relationship. She didn't want out of the other.
Yeah. So in September of 2006, Jodi and Travis happened to attend the same convention held by Prepaid Legal Services in Las Vegas. So apparently this was a common thing for their company to host all these all expense paid trips in various places for all of their employees to basically attend speaking events, meet other team members, improve sales techniques, etc. So different articles say different things about how they actually met, but the most common thing that is told is that the first night of the conference, there's a big company banquet, and then all the executives are given 2 tickets. Well, most of the executives bring their spouses, but Travis being single, he was set up with Jodi through mutual friends as someone that they had just recruited, and they thought that they would hit it off. So it's said that all who were with them that night could basically see that they had an instant connection, and they just basically sat and talked all night. They were really smitten with one another. So Travis's biggest problem with Jodi, in terms of forming a relationship, aside from living in different cities, different states, was that she just wasn't a Mormon. So when the convention was over, Jodi went back to California and Travis went back to Arizona. They stayed in touch and they would talk daily, but it was around this time that Travis began to give Jodi some information about joining the Mormon church. Jodi had apparently showed interest in it on her own, but it wasn't really something that Travis forced on her. It was assumed that she had kind of showed interest in it, mostly just because of the people that she worked with PPL, mostly being Mormon. Obviously, she's around it a lot, so probably a curiosity was there in general. But on November 26, 2006, Jodi was actually baptized into the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints with Travis as her sponsor. So shortly after, Travis and Jodi made their relationship essentially official because they could be an open couple. So as we mentioned before, in the Mormon faith, having sex before marriage is a big no-no. Well, Travis and Jodi were definitely not following that. They definitely had a very serious sexual relationship. And because they lived in different states, they would often travel to halfway points or to different cities to spend time with each other, as well as have a lot of sex under the radar.
I mean, I was gonna jokingly say, the conference, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas kind of thing. I mean, they probably hooked up that night. They probably hooked up the night of the banquet, and probably every consecutive night that they were there for.
They often traveled to different places to be together, and even were picking places that they would go of their vacations based on this book in 1,000 Places to See Before You Die. So being into photography as she was, Jodi would basically take photos of all their travels, documenting everything, and even sometimes bringing in the camera into the bedroom with them to document all of their dalliances. So throughout the course of their relationship, they exchanged over 82,000 emails and texts, which, if you're thinking back to times, it's not like it is now where each person's thread is just a conversation. These were individual text messages. Because this was 2000.
How did we ever survive with all that?
I know, that's what I'm saying. If you think back to 2006, it was just individual messages, and I'm pretty sure most phones only held like 10 or 12 at a time.
So I want to say this for the younger audience that listens, because I do know we do have some younger audience that do not know what that was.
Yeah.
So in hindsight, when you send a text now, you can just click into that conversation. Like, how if your conversation list, when you go back out of the message, it shows you like everyone you've texted, but they each have like their own individual like little clicky box. You click in and they go into it like a normal chat. Well, if you go back to that menu where all everyone's individual text like conversations are, imagine that just with one person. There wasn't a box that you could click that'll bring up this big chat. No, it was those individual little boxes. That's how you went back and reread the text you sent like an hour prior or like 10 minutes prior. It was a lot. And there was no way of like once your mailbox got like your text box got full, you had to delete the conversation if you wanted to continue. Or you'd have to like slowly delete everything, or would say delete all, and so you'd end up like deleting everything, and then you'd lose everything.
Yeah. So that's just something to keep in mind. We're not talking about the whole conversation. We're talking just in general. But even still, email was a big thing at the time as well. So if you wanted to send probably more than what the characters of a text message would allow, because unlike now, you're not allowed to send a dissertation to someone in a text message. So if you wanted to send over a certain amount of characters, you probably emailed. There was IM, I guess, then too, but that's not part of it.
But even then with IM and stuff, it wasn't private. I mean, anybody could have hacked your shit, and it was so much easier to hack stuff back then than it is now.
Yeah. So one of their phone calls was even recorded and submitted into evidence for the case and used by the defense team and played in front of the entire court. And it was a serious phone sex. conversation. Like
Oh, no.
super awkward. And it's so awkward too. If you listen to it, it's so awkward.
I don't think I'd want to listen to it, but I mean, curiosity kills the cat, and you're just like,
The one crime reporter in the one documentary even said that she's like, why am I listening to this X-rated phone sex conversation? Meanwhile, I'm literally sitting next to this blue-haired old lady who's like crying. So around this time, Travis was definitely seeing Jodi as a potential wife. He would constantly say to his friends how incredible of a woman she was, and whoever's lucky to end up with her as their wife would have basically have it made. They'd be so lucky. Well, the more and more that their relationship grew, it became apparent that Jodi definitely had a jealous side. She was definitely very possessive over Travis. She would get like super upset if Travis was seen talking to another woman, even if it was just church or business related. She made the habit of wanting Travis pretty much all to herself most of the time. So even a lot of Travis's friends began to kind of notice this. And one weekend that he and Jodi were staying with his friends, Chris and Sky Hughes, remember them, they come in later. They basically sat Travis down in another room and tried to kind of have a heart-to-heart a little bit about Jodi's behavior, basically. And Sky even said, I bet you she's outside listening right now. Mm-hmm. So sure enough, Travis sneaks over to the door to check, pulls the door open, and ta-da, Jodi was standing outside listening. So based on a lot of interviews, it seemed like Jodi didn't really care what anyone else thought. She was mostly just concerned about what Travis thought and how he felt about her. After this trip in June of 2007, Travis and Jodi went back to Mesa, Arizona, and Travis decides to break it off with Jodi. Like, hey, this isn't really a good fit. You're right. You know, like they're right. You're kind of jealous, all that. Well, Jodi's communication with Travis did not stop after this. She basically tried to play it off like, oh, well, maybe I'll just be the perfect friends with benefits ex. And, you know, maybe I'll just be what he wants. And then maybe he'll want me then. Well, Travis was pretty much just using her for sex at this point, all while seeing other girls from the church. So in addition to continuing to communicate with Travis and have sex with Travis, Jodi decides that instead of starting a new life in California, away from Travis, she decides to move to Mesa, Arizona. And not just to Mesa, but 10 minutes away from Travis's house. 10 minutes away.
Stalker.
So basically she could stalk him. Yeah. She would stake out his house for hours at a time just to basically see if any girls were coming to the house or if he was meeting another woman or bringing another woman home. It's been said she was like hiding in bushes and like shit like that. And
she was crazy.
She basically would
legitimately crazy.
Yeah, like she would basically show up to his house unannounced. Even after he changed the lock code, she would break into his house using the doggy door and sneak up to his bedroom. And sometimes Travis would kick her out. Other times he would give in to her and basically let her stay the night for guess what reason.
Well, my whole thing is why didn't anyone call the cops on her for the stalking? Like, and because I've noticed nothing that I've seen or read has said, oh, there was one of the roommates called the cops. Which, if I'm correct, didn't one of the roommates kind of catch her breaking in and would like threaten that, and Travis said no, don't?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I mean, it just probably depends. I mean, considering that Travis technically owned the house that they lived in, maybe it was kind of like a, you know, we're renting our room from you, like where do we have the right, I guess, kind of thing.
And I still feel like maybe if somebody did call the cops, but then again, also Travis kind of let her on.
Yeah,
let's face it. He breaks it off. He goes and sees all these other women, but yet he's still keeping her as a side piece. So he's still giving her that little glimmer of hope. So like, and I'm gonna say this, somebody's gonna get mad at me, and I really don't care. But at the end of the day, yes, he's the victim, but also like you led this woman on to believe that there was a possibility. And I think that's really where the kicker comes in, is it's just like, okay, yes, you broke it off. Yes, you were doing all this other stuff, but you kept leading her on for your own sexual benefit. Yeah. Not saying he deserved to die. So let's get that out. I'm not saying that.
That's where I think it comes down to it. Is so many women are even like, I mean, yeah, I've been pissed at that situation before, but I've never been to the point of like
murder.
So
well, also we're way more stable.
Valid.
Just saying.
But yeah, so Jodi's behavior was getting so severe that even Travis said to his friends, "Don't be surprised if one of these Sundays I don't show up and you find me dead somewhere," which is crazy considering what would end up happening. Right around this time, Travis met a girl named Lisa through his church who he was trying to date. So he basically told Jodi not to come around anymore. Well, Jodi started harassing Lisa via email. She would leave notes chastising her for dating Travis. And one time when Travis was at Lisa's house, he came out and his tires were slashed. So at this point, Lisa, go figure, taps out. She's like, nah, this is too much for me. Thanks. But Lisa would also later be one of the witnesses that were called to the stand by the defense for the trial as a character witness to support the notion that Travis was an overly sexual person and would basically try to force sex on whatever female that he was with. So I don't exactly know why she would agree to be a character witness for somebody that was like stalking her, but
Well, I mean, she may have had it in her mind that like, oh, well, like I said, exactly what I said. Oh, well, he was using her.
yeah.
Because by the time of all that, it came out that he was using her for all that. So she's probably like, oh, well, that explains why she was harassing me.
Yeah. So maybe, yeah.
I could see that. But
yeah. All right. So after Lisa broke it off with Travis, Travis started seeing another woman from the church. Still, all the while, I think, leading Jodi on. But this other one was named Mimi Hall, and the harassment from Jodi did not stop. So at one point, they even had a serious blow-up fight about this. It's kind of essentially effectively ending their relationship, whatever status it was at. So on May 28th, 2008, it was reported that there was a burglary at Jodi's grandparents' house. But the only thing that was stolen was her grandfather's gun. Typically with a burglary, they steal electronics,
everything,
cash, jewelry, money, but no, just the gun. Well, right around the time of this burglary, Jodi makes plans to take a road trip. Her first stop was to see Daryl, her ex, where she asked to borrow 2 gas cans. She would also be going to a PPL convention in Salt Lake City, and she would also be meeting up with Ryan Burns, who was kind of a new love interest as well, but that part was not exactly important in the story. It was just kind of there.
Pretty sure she used him.
Yeah. It's just kind of a make Travis jealous thing.
Yeah.
Well, the entire time that she was driving to Utah, Jodi's phone was turned off. She claims that it died, but it comes in later why it was turned off. Now, also keep in mind, too, this was the time of the flip phone. So it was that little, I'm pretty sure you had to pinch the things in order to plug it into the bottom of your phone. And I don't even think it was USB at the time. I'm pretty sure it was like you actually had to plug it into the wall. There might have been a USB charger at the time, like 1 or 2, but
very few. If anything, it might have been the like if in the cars they have the cigarette outlets with like the bungee cord type thing.
Yeah,
that might have been the most. But not all cars had cigarette lighters.
Most cars did not have USBs at this time, so might have been the cigarette lighter phone charger.
And even those, and I'm about to say even those weren't even. Cars were phasing them out around 2008.
Yeah, well, I think they started calling them like the power ports. You know what I mean? Because it was essentially the same thing. It was just instead of a cigarette lighter, it was a power port.
About to say, I think in I want to say 2006, 2007, they actually stopped putting cigarette lighters in, because for those of you that don't know what the hell we're talking about, if you go out into your car, you'll see a little like circle little thing with like a cover that you can pop off, and you can stick the charger into that, or you can stick something into it to give it power. Well, back in the day, those were actually, instead of being a cover, there used to be a little piece that you could put inside of it, and you would press it down and it would heat up, and it would essentially light a cigarette, and you could light a cigarette with it, but it was flameless. That's what ended up getting turned into these charging ports. For those of you that are like, cigarette lighter, what the hell's that? Yeah, well, there you go. Yeah. I feel like there's so much explaining to do
because it's a different time. So, well, on this road trip, Jodi calls Travis's phone and leaves him a long rambling voicemail talking about their upcoming travel plans for them to meet up. And this will come in later, so just remember that. Well, around this time, Travis was supposed to be getting ready to go on another work trip through prepaid legal services to Cancun. He was supposed to be leaving June 9th, and he was supposed to be taking Mimi to Cancun as his date. But she was getting really worried because she hadn't heard from him in several days. You'd think with getting ready for a big trip like that, you'd be talking about it every day, planning out what you're going to do, kind of talking about an itinerary. She hadn't heard from him. None of really his other close friends involved in PPL had heard from him either. So Mimi goes to Travis's house, and there's 4 other friends. I believe there was actually 3 other friends that showed up, and then the roommate kind of joined them. Go to Travis's house, and there was really no answer at the door. Travis's car was there, so was his dog, and they made a call and got the garage code from another one of his friends. Well, they entered the house through the garage. It was kind of one of those garages that you go through the house and you essentially enter through the laundry room. I had an ex that had a house that was like this. It's a fairly common design. So you enter through the laundry room, and then there's another door that leads you into the main part of the house, probably a living room or a bonus room or something like that. Well, the second that they entered the house, they could smell something awful. And initially when they walked in, they thought it was like the dog, that the dog had gone to the bathroom somewhere or something. But it turns out that one of his roommates was in fact home, but he was in his room watching a movie. So that's why he didn't hear the doorbell. So his friend started to talk to the roommates about when the last time he had seen Travis, and neither one of the roommates could provide an answer. And they had even thought that he had already left for Cancun. Well, his bedroom door was locked, Travis's, but they were able to get in through the door through the spare key. Once the door was open, they were hit with the awful smell, the smell of death. Not all the friends went in, but a couple did, and the ones that did could see huge blood stains on the carpet leading to the bathroom, to which Travis's body was found in a crumpled heap in the shower stall. And here's the 911 call.
What's going on? A friend of ours is dead in his bedroom. We hadn't heard from him for a while. We think he's dead. His roommate just went in there and said there's lots of blood. I didn't go in, but I can give you the phone to someone who went in there. Yes, please, can you?
Hello.
Hi, so what's going on?
He's dead. He's in his bedroom.
Okay.
In the shower.
Okay. How did this happen? Do you have any idea?
No, we have no idea. Everyone's been wondering about him for a few days.
She said that there was blood. So is it coming from his head? Did he cut his head?
It's all over the place.
Is there any weapons around?
I don't know. Not that I saw.
How many people are in the house?
How many are in the house right now? Just the 5 of us? 5 of us.
Okay, I need all of you outside.
Okay.
Hold on just a moment. Okay, you're a good friend of Travis's, correct? Yes, I am. Okay. Yeah. Has he been depressed at all? Thinking about committing suicide, anything like that?
I don't think he's been thinking he committed suicide. He's been really depressed because he broke up with this girl, and he was all upset about that. But I don't think he would actually kill himself over that.
Has he been threatened by anyone recently?
Yes, he has. Okay. He has an ex-girlfriend that's been bothering him and following him and slashing tires and things like that.
And do you know the ex-girlfriend's name?
Do you remember? Yeah. What's his ex-girlfriend's name? Ask Taylor.
And do you know if he's ever reported it to the police?
Her name is Jodi. I don't know if he's ever reported. Hold on. Yeah. Ask Taylor if he's ever reported Jodi to the police. Like, it's Travis did. No, he hasn't reported anything about Jodi's behavior.
Okay, and you guys left the roommate. When was the last time you saw Travis? Was it 3 days ago?
Zach. When was the last time you guys saw Zach? Travis. They want to know about some of the roommates.
Last time I saw him was, last Thursday or Friday?
The last time I remember seeing him was last Thursday. When was that? Mimi saw him last Tuesday. Or last Monday. She talked to him last Monday.
Okay. And everyone is out of the house. There's no one else in the house.
No one's in the house.
And what is your name?
My name is Michelle. I need to ask a friend something. Here, I'm giving the phone to Mimi.
Okay.
Taylor. Hi. She's
his business partner. Okay. And this is the tub is in his bedroom?
Yeah, and I guess I didn't go in, but from what I heard, his roommate went in. There's blood in his bedroom behind the door, and then he said it's all over.
and then they went in the bathroom and he's in his shower. I hope my phone doesn't die. I'm on like 1 bar of battery.
Okay. Well, I'm just going to keep you on the phone until officers arrive. Either officers or paramedics arrive, okay?
Okay, I think I can hear the siren now.
So you can hear from the 911 call, they're all kind of in complete shock. None of them really know how to respond. It becomes kind of pretty apparent that all the friends are very, very quick to pin it on Jodi. Even the friends that they were staying with, when she caught them listening, when they heard the news, one friend said, Jodi did it. Well, the Mesa police and the paramedics arrive on the scene, as well as lead investigator Esteban Flores and Maricopa County District Attorney Juan Martinez. He also comes into it later on as well. Travis's body was removed from the scene for analysis, where they did hair samples, fingerprinting, etc. He'd been stabbed 29 times. His throat was cut ear to ear to the point that he was almost decapitated, and he had been shot in the head. It was determined by the coroners that Travis was murdered on June 4th, 2008. Travis's body had been in that state for almost 4 days prior to being found, and it was said that he was so discolored and had even started to mummify. And out of curiosity, Krystal and I have already seen those photos, and they're not cute. They're not cute. We won't put them. For obvious reasons, we're not going to put that particular photo in, but there's less demonetizing photos that are out there.
If you guys follow us on Instagram or Facebook, actually, if you go through the photos that I put up, there is a photo of what the bathroom sink looks like, and that kind of like will give you a heads up of like how much blood was.
And those
really
will be
there.
inserted in here as well, because those are fairly tame enough that those are fine for YouTube, but definitely not ones of like actual body and whatnot.
Yeah, we made the mistake of looking that up last year when we were talking about doing this episode, and we were just like, oh, you can find everything. The coroner,
you can find it if you're really that curious. You can find it. Don't say we didn't warn you.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it. But there's a picture that, and Briana's gonna put it up, but there is the final living photo of Travis Alexander on our Instagram page, and it looks so sad and angry all at the same time.
And so throughout the crime scene investigation of the house, they opened the washing machine, where they found a load of towels as well as a camera. Whoever had started this load of wash basically intended on destroying the camera. Well, the SD card was still in the camera. And for those that don't know, it might take some work, but even after being submerged in water, something about the magnet can be restored in SD cards, and that ends up being the smoking gun of this case, is that they were able to restore that SD card. Why wouldn't she take it with her?
Because she wasn't smart.
No, she was not. Like, let me just destroy the camera. Camera won't work. It's fine.
I don't think she realized, like in the panic, to grab it.
No. Like, let's just throw all the bloody towels in the washing machine. But
I mean, like, why wouldn't you just take the camera with you?
Yeah.
Like, why leave it there? It doesn't matter what you do. I mean, it's not like now. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I've resurrected a few SD cards from my cameras in the past, from like exploded batteries and stuff like that. It's not that hard to do.
No, it's not. But yeah. Remember earlier how we said that she had left him a rambling voicemail? Well, here is that voicemail.
We could do Shakespeare, Crater Lake, and the coast. So if you can make it. If not, we'll just do the coast in Crater Lake. But let me know, and I will talk to you soon. Bye. End of message.
Knowing what we know now, if you really listen to the voicemail, it really sounds like she's just kind of listing stuff off way too quickly. She's just kind of shaky. She's trying to talk to kind of make herself like she has no idea he's dead. She probably thought, like, while she was driving, like, hey, you know what would make you look innocent? Let me just, like, innocent. Let me just call him. Like, I have no idea. Like, no idea he's dead. No idea at all. So what's also interesting is that Jodi herself would end up calling Detective Flores to say she was so sad to hear about the news. And she had just found out with everyone else. And she even made a MySpace post memorializing him and offering her assistance in any way possible because she was a really good friend to Travis. What's even crazier is that Jodi would attend the funeral. The crazy bitch sat there with his family and friends as they all grieved, pretending to be as sad as everyone else.
I don't know if it was pretending.
Well, okay, don't get me wrong. She was probably, yes, sad, but it's still the fact that she was the murderer.
She had the audacity
audacity to go to the funeral. Yeah.
I don't know.
Like,
they always
the balls.
they always say, you know, the murderers return to the crime scene, or they try to, and some behavioral science things, they do say that, like, murders will insert themselves into investigations. They will have the need to see the body, see the victim. I don't know. I forget the name of the classification that she technically would fall into, because it's not jilted lover or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
There's a scientific one, and Lord knows I'll remember it. I will, and then I'll just blurt it out, and Briana will be like, "What? We'll figure it out."
So Detective Flores asked all of Travis's friends to submit their hair and DNA samples, and they all complied. And during this time of questioning, Travis's friends, Chris and Sky Hughes, came into town to submit their DNA and for questioning. And when Detective Flores was asking them if anyone would have a reason to murder Travis, Sky said yes, Jodi Arias would. Well, Jodi had an alibi. She did, in fact, arrive in Salt Lake. So they started to kind of lean away from her as a prime suspect until the SD card. So the techs did recover all the photos that were on the SD card, and not only showed all the timestamp photos that showed her and Travis having some sexy time, that were timestamped the day of the murder, as well as the time leading up to it. There were actually photos of before the crime happened, as well as after the crime happened. And then there were also photos essentially of during when the crime was happening. Detective Flores decides to reach out to people that Jodi would have seen on this road trip. So they talked to Ryan Burns, her friend from Salt Lake, where he did in fact confirm that she arrived in Salt Lake around 11 p.m. on June 5th, but it was a day later than they had initially discussed. She was supposed to go on June 4th, apparently. He said that when she showed up, her hair had also been colored brown, and she had cuts all over her hands. She had claimed that she just got bartending. Then they talked to Daryl Brewer, which is when they found out that he lent her 2 gas cans. So now it's all starting to make sense to the investigators. She borrowed these gas cans in order to get through the state of Arizona without having to stop for gas anywhere that would leave a paper trail or have her appear on surveillance cameras or anything like that. Her dead cell phone also made sense so that the location would not ping her in Arizona. So now all of this is kind of starting to point to premeditation. So clearly at this point, they know she's lying, because not only can they prove the premeditation, because now they have the SD card proving that she was at the crime scene the day the murder happened. So when they finally brought Jodi in for questioning, she was sticking to the story that she was not at Travis's house and there's no way I could have done this and everything else. And the interrogation footage is wild. She just goes back and forth with Detective Flores the entire time.
And that's one of the reasons I'm here, because I believe that you know some of these details. And I think you can help us.
I would love to help you in any way that I can.
Okay. I have a problem with this trip over and over in my mind and on paper. And even if there's still 20 some odd hours, even if you pulled over to sleep a couple of times.
Oh, did I tell you that I got stranded?
Yeah. You mentioned that. If you slept for 10 hours,
I only slept for like
here and here, it would still leave 18 some odd hours for something else. Okay. This is what people are focusing on, is this trip that you took. Because they're saying she left, she didn't get to till Thursday. Wednesday? That's when Travis was killed.
I did not go near his house. Aren't there?
I pulled your cell records. Your cell phone was turned off between here and here. Okay. But the last place it pulled it was here. The next place it turned on was here. What does that show me?
Oh, well, I began. Oh, no.
Is there plenty of time for you to do that? Yes. And do I believe that you had come to visit Travis? Yes. I truly believe it. Did you have the opportunity? Yes. You were traveling alone. There's no other witnesses. Your phone just happened to turn off from here to here.
Well, I didn't turn it off physically, but it died.
And then it magically,
I got
you
it.
found your charger here?
It was packed under the seat of the passenger side, and it was when I was.
When you were lost, you couldn't have maybe pulled over and found it? Or?
Well, I did finally start looking when I was stranded. I wouldn't have pulled over when I was lost.
Okay, I've been focusing on this and going over and over my mind why this happened. Why your phone turns off here outside of Los Angeles.
What city is that? Because I
Going
got
towards-
as far as
There's no cities, there's towers.
Oh, okay. Well, I
And
got.
there's towers dotted all over this place.
Yeah.
One tower hit here, the other tower here on the 93. There's no way somebody can get on that 15 and magically get on that 93. Because that 15 goes right through Las Vegas, right there. It continues this way. It never goes through Arizona again. That still doesn't make any sense to me. And I can pull the maps and show them to you, and you can go over and over and over again. But I don't think you're being completely honest with me about that trip.
I honestly got lost. It's bad timing.
Were you at Travis's house on Wednesday?
Absolutely not. I was nowhere near Mesa. I was nowhere near
No.
Phoenix. I wasn't even close to him.
What if I could show you proof you were there? Would that change your mind?
I wasn't there.
Be honest with me, Jodi.
I was not at Travis's house. I was not.
You were at Travis's house. You guys had a sexual encounter, which there's pictures. I know you know there's pictures because I have them. I will show them to you. Okay? So, what I'm asking you is for you to be honest with me. I know you were there.
Are you sure those pictures aren't from another time?
Positive. Absolutely positive. Remember I told you about the camera?
Mm-hmm.
That camera was damaged. Someone put it in a washing machine. Ran it through a wash cycle. With some clothes of Travis's. But the card's intact. Remember I told you that card was destroyed? I didn't want to tell you the truth. Because I wanted to make sure those photos were accurate. And we can pull deleted photos. I don't care if you delete them 6 months ago. We can pull every photo that was ever on there. Pull pixels together, get the timestamps on them. Not all of them, but most of them have timestamps on them, and we can verify those timestamps. And I have pictures of you in Travis's bedroom with Travis, pictures of him, and it's obvious you guys are having sex, taking photos of each other, and they're dated and time-stamped on the day he died. You were there. Quit playing this game. It's time for you to just come out and
I didn't
tell me.
know. I did not hurt Travis. I did not hurt Travis.
At the scene. In blood. What's going on there?
Well, I can explain the blood and the hair. I don't know about my left palm print.
How can you explain the blood in there?
Well, because I used to bathe Napoleon all the time. And,
You haven't been there since April. Right?
well,
He's had the house cleaned several times since then. And this hair was not just a hair, you know, from the shower or something. This hair was stuck with blood and obviously had blood on it. At the time it got stuck where it ended up.
my
there's
hair would
no
have been
way.
all over.
There's no other hair.
Can you take a hair sample? And
We
like,
have your DNA.
no, but I mean, like, you know how they could do drug tests and find out when things were done? Can you,
We can't do that.
can't you measure the time?
This is over. This is absolutely over. You need to tell me the truth.
Listen, the truth is I did not hurt Travis. Okay,
After Detective Flores essentially tells her, like, look, this is over for you. I need you to tell me the truth because one way or another you're under arrest. So reads her rights, and she does in fact get arrested for the murder of Travis Alexander. So first of all, before they do any of that, he leaves. Well, before he leaves the room, she actually asks, well, before I get booked, can I like put some makeup on? Can I clean myself up first?
Because
And I think even the one other investigator was like, I've never seen anyone ask how their hair was before taking a booking photo before. And you even see in her booking photo, she's just like, just got this like cocky little grin. But yeah, they left her in the interrogation room alone for quite some time. Some say that it was like a half an hour. Some say it was like a couple hours, kind of up in the air because everything's kind of time elapsed. But it just, the footage is just so bizarre.
should have at least done your makeup, Jodi. Gosh. The stars are brightly shining. This is the day of our dear Savior's birth.
I mean, in all honesty, I'm also wondering if she did that to try to pull a plea of insanity.
Well, so that's what I think they maybe tried to argue, was like if they thought, oh, like if maybe she thought like, oh, what would a good person do? Maybe they'd sing, like maybe they'd do a little yoga, like
Do
just
a
kind of
yodeling
fix
session.
some things, you know. And yeah, so I think maybe she thought like if she acted this way, that maybe her defense team could go for the insanity plea. But basically, once some of the evidence starts coming out, it's like clear that no one, especially a jury, would believe that this was like an insane woman based on all the other accounts.
Oh, but there's still people out there that think she
Oh yeah.
wasn't in the right state of mind. She was under duress.
Yeah.
That was one of the things I heard was somebody had said that she was under duress because he was leading her on and using her while, basically, how was it equated to locking her in a closet, basically, is what they said, was that he was essentially locking her in a sexual closet while he was running free and doing whatever he wanted. He kept her on a leash. Because if I'm correct, didn't somebody, I want to say, wasn't it her lawyer that said that she referred that he had called her a bitch a few times and stuff like that? And it's like, okay, but did he?
Well, this wasn't the only tactic that Jodi tried to portray her innocence. She, after her booking, she did in fact come back the next day for more interrogation. Well, this time she claims that it was two white American individuals in ski masks that broke into the house and attacked Travis. Initially, she said it was two guys, but then it changed to a guy and a girl as her story went on. She claimed that they argued about whether or not to kill her because she was a witness to Travis's murder, and they knew all of her information because they got her registration card out of her wallet, so they knew where her family lived, and that's why she didn't say anything, and they were going to kill her. And they, the girl wanted to kill her, and she's like, you need to do this and that and da 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 da. And
I just, you have to be on some serious shit, to just come up with that off the fly.
Yeah. Well, that was their main question, was like, okay, well, if you were a witness to this, why the hell didn't you report it to police? Like, you'd think if you witnessed people breaking into your boyfriend's house and kill them in front of you, you would do that. And she's like, no, I ran away like a little bitch. I just left him there. Like, I was just so scared.
This is, and I've always asked this question. His roommates were in the house.
Yeah.
How did they, A, not hear anything?
Yeah.
B, not see her walking through the house?
Well, it's unclear as to whether they were actually home or not. Because you factor, I mean, who knows what the roommates were doing the night of June 4th.
Well, so the thing is there's been other articles that speculated that one of the guys was home. Then there was another one that said, oh no, both of them were home. So I mean, I guess, yeah, but still does no one think, oh, I haven't seen my buddy in a couple days, but his car's still here?
Or how about after he had been murdered, you'd think one of the roommates, if they were home, would have heard Jodi running down the stairs and out of the house.
Well, and
like,
so but so here's my other thing. He was dead for 4 days in this house, in this tub, for 4 days. Yeah. The people that broke into the house through the garage,
like, they smelled it immediately.
How?
Yeah.
Were you guys sick? Is that why you didn't smell it? Did you think the trash was like needed to be taken out? Like,
well, so that's what I think they actually told the investigators, because that was the one thing that Detective Flores did ask them, like, how have you been living in a house with a dead body and nobody knew it? And Bill actually made the good point when I was doing some of the research. Bill actually made the point that realistically, you're guys, so yes, there could be smelly laundry, smelly trash, left food out, and ultimately they probably just went nose blind to it. They probably were just like, eh.
But the other problem that I have with that whole theory is I know plenty of guys out there that, especially, and I mean, I went to church before. They're some of the neatest people you meet.
Yeah.
So, and then my other thing that I say on this is that's a smell that I don't think you would just associate with trash. And not only that, the washing machine was on.
Yeah.
Did they not do laundry for 4 days?
Can you imagine how mildewy those towels smell by the time they open that?
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like, there's so many different things that just it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Like, you're used to seeing this guy. You knew he wasn't supposed to leave for what, another day, I think, a day and a half. Like, you knew he wasn't supposed to leave. And then you're not gonna think anything of it that his vehicle's still there.
Or even if you had thought he already left, you'd think that, you know, if there was expectations of, hey, don't forget to do this, 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 and this with
There
my
would've been
dog.
something.
Like, you know, he had a dog. So you'd think that if there was roommate expectation to take care of the dog, that there would have been at least been like a conversation, an email, some sort of, you know, something. Because I
I'm not
know,
gonna
like, my mom,
lie.
when my parents go out, like, would go out of town and I'd be looking after their cats, even though I had done it hundreds of times, my mom would still print out like a daily, like, hey, don't forget this, don't forget that, you know, and some sort of an itinerary. So then that way it's like, oh, okay, this is roughly what time they're going to be back on whatever.
But like, but even so, like, my brain still goes, okay, what were the two of you doing that you didn't realize your best friend
/ landlord
has been missing?
Yeah. So
there's too much in my brain that just, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And I've always had that, it doesn't make sense. Like, okay, were you high?
I mean, it's a possibility. There's always that.
There's a very good possibility.
The one roommate that was watching the movie, it was a known thing that he had a girlfriend, so he could have been at the girlfriend's house. It's not, you know.
But see, that's my other thing. That's my other thing. No woman is gonna walk into a house smelling that shit and not go, oh my god, what the hell is that?
Yeah.
And go investigate.
Yeah.
I will tell you right now, if I have walked into people's houses and I'm just like,
yeah,
okay, wow, what's
well,
that
and I mean, I don't want to say specifically death, but like blood alone has a very distinct smell. I think they've even said that, like, in copious amounts, like, a lot of people will smell like almonds or, you know, stuff
high
like that.
iron.
Yeah. And considering
even
the
that
fact
alone,
that he had been like that for 4 days, it just kind of makes you wonder, like,
the fact
what
that he
level. Yeah.
The fact that he was mummifying, though.
Yeah.
That musty, disgusting smell. You can't tell me that shit didn't get into the vents and things like that. But also, well, didn't they say that, like, the water was still running at one point?
See, I've seen articles that said that it was. I've seen articles that say that it wasn't. I've seen articles where it said that she initially put him in the shower to rinse him off, like, after the fact. So yeah, that's the other thing, is if the shower was running, you'd think you would have noticed, hey, why the hell is the shower running for 4 days?
And there'd be no hot water. But
that, like,
so my
I'm gonna probably go with the notion that chances are the water was shut off, because I feel like if that were the case, they probably would have done it sooner. Because if there were no, I mean,
or they may not have showered their own selves.
Yeah.
Just saying. Yeah. Well, my other thing about it is, like, so he was mummified, or like beginning to mummify. He had such horrible discoloration. I don't think that comes from just lying out to dry. Yeah. There had to be some type of, like, humidity in there that was keeping him.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, at the end of the day, you get out of the shower, if you don't towel dry, it takes what? Slightly a little longer.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know anybody that doesn't towel dry to get out, but I mean, I'm not going to assume. Yeah. But either way, like, I don't see you staying wet for 4 days.
Yeah.
I don't know. A lot of circumstances surrounding those 4 days just, begs a lot of question.
And I think that's kind of like the one plot hole that I think frustrates a lot of people. because when I was doing research on this, like that was the one thing that really just kind of like, it's like, yeah, why wouldn't they have at least, questioned XYZ? But either way, I mean,
yeah, I
obviously the
get-
roommates are innocent regardless of questions, but
is it so wrong of me to say that maybe, just maybe, they were plotting?
I mean,
I'm not trying to sound like
no,
little
I'm
shit
saying, could it
stirrer,
be
but,
possible that she was like, hey,
I mean, do we even have a name for the girlfriend for the one dude?
I don't think so, no, because there's a lot of people that were like unnamed in this.
Yeah.
So you hear the names of the people that are in the 911 call.
Yeah.
Because there's obviously Mimi, Michelle, Zach, I think was the one roommate. And then I think the other roommate's name was Enrique, but he wasn't involved in the 911 call. But Zach and Enrique were his two roommates. But yeah, but either way, this case got a ton of media attention. We're talking borderline Casey Anthony level, OJ level media attention.
And I mean, at the time, especially if you look at the time frame, if I don't want to say Natalie Holloway was roughly around that time frame too.
Yeah.
So it's not like this was something that was unheard of, but it's just like,
no, but I don't think because it was I don't think it was the gruesomeness of the case. I think it was because ultimately it was a woman that was a brunt of the investigation. It wasn't a man attacking a woman. It was a woman attacking a man. And that wasn't a common thing. Not that it's a common thing now, let's be honest. It's still usually the latter, which is unfortunate when it comes to true crime. But
and it does suck because you do see a lot of crimes where they'll call Jodi a serial killer, and you're just like, no, honey, she's not a serial killer.
Means more than
she's
one.
Just a killer who garnered media attention exactly because of the reason you said. It's not because, oh, it's gruesome, it was horrible. Yes, it was gruesome. Yes, it was horrible. But it's because it was a female, and the fact that she wasn't showing remorse.
Yeah. And that's ultimately what it is when she started doing press interviews, she started telling more lies. Like even when a reporter asked her if he was abusive towards her ever, and she even said, like, we didn't fight. He lost his temper a few times, but we were never fought. And I never thought in my life that my life would be in danger. And she even like told reporters that she didn't think she would ever spend one day in prison, just because she didn't think that anyone would ever believe she was capable of doing anything, because she just, that's just how she was.
She was little.
Yeah.
Is how she said she wasn't quote strong enough to move him.
And she just speaks in this way that she tries to be so educated and calm and like in control of her emotions, and like definitely just makes her look like this strong, collected woman, and like, so sure of herself, which again, confidence isn't a bad thing, but who else had confidence? Ted freaking Bundy.
I honestly wonder if she was mimicking him.
He was so confident that he defended himself in trial.
He's not the only person to ever do that either.
No, he's not. But the fact that it was just ironic, because Ted Bundy was a lawyer. Like when it comes down to it, out of anybody that's ever defended themselves, he was probably the most qualified one to do it. Like, yeah, it's crazy, but it's true. We'll get into him at some point in a case.
He's one that we might need to like segment.
Harder. Yeah.
Yeah, because if not, y'all will lose your attention span with us, and we know that.
So basically, when the trial finally began, again, murder happened in 2008. Trial started in January of 2013. Again, it's unclear exactly why it took this long, because you factor that's a 5-year gap. So mind you, she was in prison all this time. She was doing things to entertain herself because she was under the impression she was going to get out of jail. So she was doing all these interviews, even Nancy Grace like would make fun of her. Like, yeah, fix your makeup before you answer questions about murdering your lover. Love Nancy Grace, but she's just a savage. That's why I love her. But like, yeah, and then she was in the Christmas singing competition in prison where she sang "Oh Holy Night" again. I think the thing was you'd win a Christmas dinner for your whole cell block if you won. So, she's singing "Oh Holy Night." Again, one of her favorites. So
It's probably the only one she knows the words to.
probably. But yeah, so when the trial finally began, the prosecution's case was very clear. Juan Martinez, who was the lead prosecutor, and he had actually been to the scene, which is not common, I don't believe. But since he was the state attorney, he was very much the lead prosecutor on this.
Which I have to question, why did he go?
Again, I
to
think it's
the
because at the
crime
time he
scene?
was the state attorney.
But
So I don't.
the state attorneys usually don't go to the crime scene the night of the discovery.
I'm pretty sure most DAs have some kind of hand-in-hand thing with law enforcement.
I
So
think they
maybe just
usually,
because the brutality of the crime, they knew that there was going to be some sort of murder trial. So again, it's just speculation, but
yeah,
again,
it doesn't make sense because I don't think any of the DAs showed up at the Richard Ramirez
yeah.
murders.
Well, and once again, it'd be one thing if it was like 2009 that the trial had started, but this is a 5-year gap in between her getting arrested and when the trial initially started. So you'd think, like, at this point, he would have been like, okay, here's everything that I know. Here's my stack of paperwork.
Yeah, especially if you were there since night one. But my other biggest question is, why 5 years? Is it because they didn't really have every concrete thing?
Possibly. Or maybe it took
Was
that
there
long to get all the character witnesses and whatnot in terms of schedule. Could have
I
been a
don't know.
thing too.
I feel like I don't know. Part of me goes, was there another investigation done in those 5 years? Did somebody else kind of put some doubt that they had the
Yeah.
wrong person and they had to re-go through the case? Because most of the murders we talk about, their trials are relatively like
Snappy,
bam,
snappy.
bam, bam.
Yeah.
It usually happens within a year.
Yeah,
Just
or
like
at least 2 years at the minimum. But yeah.
the Brian Pennell case that happened within a year.
Yeah.
The Charles Cullen case that happened within about a year.
Yeah.
So it's like, why take so long for just one murder?
Yeah.
Not multi, one.
One
Brian
murder in
Pennell.
one state in one,
Brian
like
Pennell
obviously
murdered
Ted Bundy's took forever because it was multiple states.
Exactly.
But
Brian Pennell's happened in one state, but there were like 4 or 5 murders, something like that. I talked about it before, but
yeah,
it was multiple murders involving an entire task force here in the state of Delaware, and his trial was within the year.
Yeah.
I think he was sentenced on the year mark of his death, or the year mark of the first killing. Same with Red Dog. He's another local Delaware guy who got caught for, it was one murder, but it happened within 2 counties. Like, he murdered somebody here in Wilmington, kidnapped the neighbor, took her down to Smyrna, and that's where he got caught, was driving from Smyrna back up to Wilmington.
Yeah.
So it's like, but that trial also happened within a year of him getting caught. So what makes this one case, this one murder, take 5 years? Isn't there what is it, a right to a speedy trial?
Yeah.
It's a law, it's a federal law that is like, oh, okay, so why didn't she get the speedy trial?
Yeah. And it really is, I mean,
5 years? It doesn't
just
make
kind
sense.
of makes you wonder. Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. There's too many murders out there that it just, I'm sorry, it casts
again,
a lot
the
of
frustration
doubt.
of the judicial system, But yeah, the prosecution was arguing for the death penalty right away because that's what Travis's siblings wanted. It should be noted that at this point, Travis's parents had already passed. Both Travis's parents had passed away in, I believe, the late 90s.
Dad passed away in July of 97.
Yeah.
His mom was March of 05.
Okay. So they were basically not involved at this point. That's partially why they were taken in by the grandparents, was, again, the parents had drug problems. So it was basically Travis's siblings that were considered the family that were working with the prosecution at this point.
Quote unquote next of kin.
Yeah, basically they were his next of kin. And also, I believe the sister in the one documentary that did a testimony talked about how the grandmother passed away before the selection of the first jury, the grandmother that raised them. So she didn't get to see any of the trial, which is, I'm not that, you know, she
She didn't
needed
get
to
to see
see any of
justice.
that, but
She didn't
yeah,
get to see justice for her grandson.
yeah, exactly. So again, because it took so long, you know, so
Which again, why? I'm sorry. That
yeah,
just,
it doesn't make
I
sense.
hate to keep going
Yeah.
back into it, but
I know.
it's just,
But
it
yeah.
doesn't make sense looking at all these other cases that we have talked about, that we have dealt with. Why going on in those 5 years that you needed, what was her Christmas concerts that good in prison?
she went on a tour of the cell blocks.
What doesn't make sense?
Again, it was probably her and her defense team. It was probably a situation similar to Casey Anthony, like where she needed to figure out a defense lawyer that was actually willing to listen to her bullshit long enough to defend her.
No,
But
didn't she get her attorney wasn't that he wasn't they weren't court appointed, right?
honestly don't know. I know she worked with a female attorney and a male attorney. And the
I don't
male
think
attorney, I believe, basically wrote a tell-all book saying that he basically, like, she just treated him like shit.
Yeah.
And she would just never work with him and everything else. But then the female lawyer, who was primarily her attorney, she would work with somehow.
Yeah.
But
because it's another female. And if I'm correct, in the documentary, it was the female lawyer that was like, oh, she would never do this.
Yeah. So she was like the only person that was, which here's my thing about some of these defense attorneys. You have to wonder, do they actually genuinely believe them? Or do they basically say, look, you have to tell me a story that's semi-believable enough that I can argue for a lesser sentence at minimum.
Yeah.
Because like some of these, like even with Casey, like Jose Baez for Casey Anthony, like you sit and you look at them and you're like, how the hell can you defend her?
Bigger question is on that mind is not, do they believe you? How are they going to sleep at night?
Yeah.
Because I guarantee you, they've told them, oh yeah, no, I did it. Guarantee you, if you want to keep, we'll keep touching on Casey Anthony. Guarantee you, she told her defense attorney, oh yeah, I did it. This is where she's at, but we're not going to tell anybody. And client privilege, he can't go to the cops and say anything. Like his hands are literally legally bound. So at the end of the day, it's like, okay, can you sleep at night knowing that you just you defended someone like this?
Well, there was a whole other situation with Casey Anthony and Jose Baez. That's like a whole different ballgame. But
but I mean, with anybody, like how knowing they're guilty, like they admit it to you, or just hearing the guilty verdict and then hearing them actually say it. Can you sleep at night if that person got out free, knowing that they did something right, like they did something wrong? That's my biggest thing, is like, I wanted to be a lawyer. I like this too much. B, I have an attitude problem. I would be held in contempt of court way too much. And C, I couldn't defend someone like that. I would say, nope, sorry, I don't care how much you pay me. You can pay me like $50 million. I don't give a shit.
But yeah, so basically the prosecution was going for premeditated first-degree murder, in addition, obviously, to the death penalty, but obviously one had to come before the other. So the main thing that the medical examiner was on the stand to clarify was in what order were the attacks done, because it was kind of unclear what truly was the first occurrence. Would she be the type to shoot him and then just stab him out of anger and slit his throat for good measure? Or did she want him to suffer? You know, was it a crime of passion? So did she stab him first, slit his throat, and then shoot him? And the medical examiner would later confirm that these, in fact, were the order that the attacks happened: the stabbing, the throat, and then the gun.
It was an act of passion. I guarantee you that gun was a last. I guarantee the gun was just the good measure. Yeah.
So basically, the medical examiner explained that the cause of death was excessive blood loss. And he also pointed out that Travis had defensive wounds, which point to him defending himself against her and not the other way around, which is important to note because some of the little tiny nicks and cuts and everything that Jodi Arias claimed to have had on her, that was really it. She didn't have any other defensive wounds, which later comes into one of the other stories that they try to spin when they're on the stage.
Dude, she should just make a book of,
Yeah.
how to come up with stories to get yourself
Pretty
out of
much,
murder.
yeah.
Just come up with a book. Here you go. Here's everything I did and it didn't work. So
Yeah.
don't use these.
Yeah. So the biggest thing, and as Krystal started to go into before, was the final photo of Travis alive, which of course we'll insert it over here. Is just kind of trying to figure out what exactly is going on behind his eyes. Is he posing, trying to be sexy? Like, did she have the knife in her hand or have the gun in her hand or something like that? Just kind of like show it to him and was like trying to get a rise out of him initially. Or because I mean, I don't know. I view it as like he was posing, but his eyes are definitely just like nothing.
I don't think he was posing.
Yeah.
I think not that she caught him off guard.
I think it was like a hey Travis. Like
yeah, I think that's what it was. Like he had water coming onto him, and that's
Right.
where you get that expression. I don't think it was the knife or the gun. I don't think it was any of that. I don't think it was. I mean, clearly, she didn't walk out going, "Hey, Travis." No, wasn't about
I think it was very much candid in the sense that she probably was trying to get, like, he was probably mid shower, like, other than the posing, of course, that like he was doing the photo, like the posing photos for. I think it was like a hey, look over here.
Yeah.
And that's when you would get that photo. But again, it's unclear.
I'm honestly wondering if his response in that photo is kind of what just made her go.
Yep.
And like lose her shit.
Yeah.
Like she didn't get the reaction she wanted.
Well, so here's my thing though, because obviously the photos are happening before and after and like during. So obviously she had the knife in her hand at some point. Like it was with her. You know what I mean? Because that photo, if that's the last photo of him be alive, she wouldn't take that photo and then be like, okay, hold on.
Well, so she could have said, taken the photo and then put the camera down.
Yeah.
And like, because I think, didn't they say like she got in the shower with him at one point and then she got out? Who's to say that she didn't get out, grab like a towel or something?
Yeah.
And then just
that's the thing. There's the burst photos that kind of come into play, that it's the question of how did they even get taken in the first place? Was it a timer? Did like the camera drop and like fall on the button? Was it a setting? Was it like a burst setting?
So if you were to drop a camera, and I have professional cameras and I've worked with cameras since I was a kid. If you were to drop, it would not have taken that many pictures, not like how you would on your phone. If it would have dropped, it may have taken one photo, unless she had a certain setting on her phone, or like on her camera, that like if she clicked the button, it would like go do, which there's a possibility, but I don't think if it would have fallen, especially because of course,
I took photography in college, and the camera that they gave us had a sport mode on it, and I remember playing with that.
There is a mode that you can actually mess with the settings, and it can give you more shots within that click, but you would hear it. Yeah, like you could hear it go, not just. Most of the buttons actually are like slightly receded. A little bit, depending on the model of the camera. The button might not have been like flush, like above the top. Some of them actually just go like straight across. Where like, let's just say the phone's here. Like if she was to drop it, or if it was to fall, it would have had to have fallen a certain way to go from here to here. And if it fell, I could have seen it going forward.
Which again kind of brings the question of, it all kind of circles back to like, okay, well, how do these pictures exist in the first place? The angle that they're at, thinking, putting myself in the position of that, a shower stall is fairly small, based on also the fact that we've seen the photos of the shower stall. Semi-small, maybe about the space that I'm working with, if that. So when you're thinking about it, you wouldn't be holding it with the same kind of, like, you wouldn't, even one-handed, you wouldn't be holding a camera like perfectly, like one angle perfectly, if you were actively
stabbing somebody.
So, and like thinking about it in that terms, maybe she did have a setting, like a random burst setting on it, and she's holding it. And obviously as she's moving, because if you look at the photos, I mean, we've showed them, you know, the burst photos across here. If you look at the photos, they're definitely not like a high, you know, her height angle. They're from like down low. So maybe, again, maybe it's a she set it and then just kind of let it go as she was, you know.
I'm stupid me. Well, not really stupid, but like, especially with the angles, it makes you wonder, could it have been on a tripod with a timer?
So I was gonna say
Possibly.
timer has been argued, but Jodi doesn't really strike me as the type to like prop up a tripod. So
Yeah,
let
but you
alone
don't
in
know.
the bathroom.
She may have had it already set up in the bedroom.
That's also a possibility as well.
That's where I'm thinking, like, she maybe already had it set up in the bedroom, because who's to say that that photo she took of him was her holding the camera? Who's to say it couldn't have been on a tripod?
Just
I mean,
on
and
the
I hate to
close
say
proximity to like where the where the camera is to where Travis is standing. It seems like chances are it was in close proximity.
I mean, like one like this.
Yeah.
So like if you have a camera,
yeah,
I'm hoping this doesn't mess me up, but if you have a camera, you can hold it like this.
Yeah, that's true.
On a tripod like this, it'll keep it steadier than if you were to, you know, hold it a different way.
Camera. Yeah. So again, it's a thing that kind of comes back, was just how are those photos in existence in the first place, because it's not quite often that you literally have photos of the murder happening when it's happening. It's typically a after the fact kind of a thing. So another big piece of evidence that was entered in was Jodi's personal journal, basically looking for any entries where she would have written about Travis being abusive or violent or anything like that to her. And all they could find was entries about how much she loved him and how great they were together and how she saw their future and everything else. So Jodi herself would later take the stand and spin a completely new story. And she was on the stand for 18 days, which is crazy. Like, when I served a jury for a criminal case, we were there for 7 days total, and that was a weekend in between. We did not do 18 days of the same person trying to tell 5 different stories. Just no. But this time she claims she did kill Travis Alexander, but it was in self-defense. She claims they were taking photos, trying out different poses, and she dropped the camera, so he snapped. He said a 5-year-old could hold a camera better. So she claims that he body slammed her onto the tile, and she was trying to run and get away from him. So she ran and hid in the closet where she knew that he kept his gun, which conveniently was the exact same caliber gun that was stolen from her grandparents. Imagine that. So she wanted to just scare him. So she wanted to just point it at him just so like he saw it, so he could see it. But the gun just went off. She doesn't even believe she was holding the trigger. But then she just blacks out and she has no memory of what happened after that. And it's like, I can just imagine her defense team being like, yeah, so like after you shoot him, just make sure you like black out, because like we can't explain the rest of it. Like we can explain the shooting part, just but like black out and you just have no memory of the rest of it, because like,
I feel like no matter what you like, no matter what way you look at it, you don't make up that many different stories if you're not guilty.
That's what I'm saying. Yes. Like and that's what's crazy.
I'm so like, sorry. That sounds horrible, but
did she think that a jury who at this point was aware of how many different, like, so that's the other thing too, is as a juror, because I've been a juror before in a criminal thing. When the lawyers or whatever, or the defendant brings up something that has been dismissed, they're said, that's no longer a thing. Please dismiss the jury for, like they like literally they don't mess around. If you start to say something that is not part of the trial, they shut it down. Yeah. So you just wonder how many times in that trial was that maybe a factor. They're like, oh no, that's that's inadmissible. No,
Yeah.
recess the jury. Like, so
Can't
maybe
talk
that's
about
why the
that.
trial took so long. Because the trial took 5 months total.
Yeah.
It took between January and May. So that's a 5-month trial, factoring that court is not in session on Fridays in most states. So there's 3 weekend days in between there. So obviously also
still,
not factoring holidays either. So Martin Luther King Day, you know,
yeah,
etc.
any
Easter,
federal
you know.
holiday.
Yeah.
But I mean, even on that, like, you also have to think, like, the jurors couldn't go home during any of those
they were
holidays.
sequestered. Most
They
of them
were
sequestered.
stuck. Could
You
you
also
imagine
have to
how many
question,
people
too, if
still
it
possibly
took-
lost their job?
Yeah. Well, so you also have to question too, if it took 5 years for this trial to get off the ground, how many jurors do you think were like probably 18-year-olds or young kids that really just probably hadn't heard of it? Because you
Mhm.
factored nobody who was of adult age in 2008 probably hadn't heard anything about this case, especially it got a
Mhm.
ton of media coverage. So you factor how many jurors did this, just like with OJ, how many jurors do you think they had to go through
To find
that
somebody
could
that
be
didn't know other
impartial? It
things.
was probably very similar to Casey Anthony in a sense that they just had to give up on trying to find jurors that hadn't heard of anything. They were just
Mhm.
like, okay, look, can you be impartial? Like, they were just like, look, we know you've heard of it, but like, can you be impartial at this point?
I mean, you gotta think the jury was probably made up of a lot of people our age.
That's what I'm
'Cause
saying.
I mean,
Yeah.
at the time,
I hadn't heard of it. I didn't watch the news.
I heard of it just a little bit because I was a sick, morbid little kid. That, well, not little kid, but I was a sick, morbid teenager. Like, stuff like that. I was like, somebody was murdered.
But like, I
again,
didn't watch the
also,
news. My news was like Facebook and MySpace, you know. So I
Facebook
didn't.
wasn't even a real thing. Like, it was in its get up and go. It was MySpace.
Yeah.
And even then, like, they weren't even really focused on like any type of news.
So basically, at this point, Jodi and her defense team are getting desperate, for less of a better word, because let's be honest, at this point, when you've changed your story 5 different times, you're pretty desperate and you're going to try anything. So at this point, in addition to claiming that Travis was abusive, she claimed that Travis was a pedophile. So she went for the full, yeah. She claims she walked into his bedroom one day and caught him pleasuring himself to a photo of a young boy. But like, other than Jodi's word, there was literally no proof of these claims. The defense claims that there was proof of it on Travis's computer, but like the prosecution must have deleted it because they can't find it. As we said, when Jodi was on the witness stand, she was on the witness stand for 18 days. I think her defense team, they figured, you know, this is hopeless. Might as well just let her do her thing. Why not? So basically, in the, oh, he was so abusive, you know, she would hold her finger like all weird, like almost practically like my fingers are really small, like hers are kind of long and bony. So like she would just hold her finger all weird, like, oh look, my finger is all bent. So he's so abusive. Just but like, then you see photos of her like with her arm around somebody after the incident supposedly occurred and her finger is fine. It's like, well, my fingers is straight and this finger is bent, so he's so abusive and that's my injury. But I think they also thought too that with the body slamming on the tile, they're like, okay, well, that's going to be the one thing that wouldn't leave her with any sort of like defense wounds, so let's just go for that. So basically, I think they determined, just no matter how many ways Jodi tried to spin her story, the jury were still going to find issues and plot holes in pretty much all of the stories. And as we said before, that's if all the stories were even entered into evidence. For all we know, the first 3 could have been thrown out. We have no idea.
Oh, they probably didn't even, well, okay, so they probably had to put everything that made it out onto like the media.
Yeah,
I think that all had to go out, but other than that, I don't think anything else. And I'm so sorry, I had to like move my screen, good. So apologize, viewers, but like
but yeah, you factor at this point, by the time the trial had even started, she had done, you know, so many media interviews with ABC News and Fox News and, CNN and, all these other things, that it's like she had told different stories every single time, it seems like. And not to mention, everybody had seen her in an interrogation footage and stuff like that. So it's like people were aware of all the different stories she was trying to tell at this point. So it's not like it was like, oh, shut it down. So I don't know. But Jodi was still confident. Jodi was still confident that the jury would believe her and she just wouldn't be convicted. After a 5-month trial, jurors finally go in for deliberations. And this trial was to determine the guilty or not guilty. And if you don't know, this decision has to be unanimous or a mistrial is declared. So on May 8th, 2013, after 4 days of deliberation, Jodi Arias was convicted of first-degree murder. Her defense team had basically tried in the closing arguments to basically say that if she should be convicted of anything, it's just manslaughter, but not premeditated first-degree murder. But in fact, she was found guilty of first-degree murder. Basically, there was a huge crowd of people outside waiting to hear the verdict. Like, we're talking OJ status. People basically plan their vacations around the ability to be there for this verdict reading. I mean, it was a long trial. People were following it. Wasn't nearly as long as OJ's trial, but people were, I think, again, fascinated by the fact that it was a woman on trial for the murder of a man. Is realistically probably what it came down to. So one way or another, this was just to determine guilty or not guilty. They would have to do a completely separate trial for the sentencing, because obviously that was a life or death sentencing situation. So this was pretty much kind of a year-ish later. They basically were doing the death penalty or life in prison trial, and several of Travis's siblings spoke on his behalf. His sister Samantha, as I mentioned before, her testimony is super heart-wrenching and really kind of hard to watch, because she really does talk about just how important Travis was to their family and just affected their whole family leading up to the trial. So basically, during this whole life or death trial, now it's Jodi's turn to address the jury, address the family, address everything about her previous statements across the entire trial, in the media, etc. And she tried to argue that she never intended to make Travis look bad. It was just it was actually, in fact, to preserve his reputation, which, I know, I don't know how that works. Oh yeah, and then she showed up to court with this t-shirt. She's like, I designed this t-shirt. It's this white t-shirt with this purple survivor across it. And it's like, and if you buy one, all the profits will go to a nonprofit that benefits female survivors of domestic abuse and like all this other stuff. So basically she's basically saying that she can do a lot of good in jail. She's gonna, raise money in jail for other domestic abuse survivors. She wants to start a program where she helps women in jail learn to read, because apparently that's just no one in jail can read, apparently. She also wants to start a recycling program in the jail. And she tried to say how good of a person she was, because in her time in jail, that 5 years she was locked up, she's grown her hair out twice and donated it to Locks of Love, which isn't even a good organization. Which
first number one, and
for different reasons, which we can put some better ones down below if you'd like. That's a whole different cosmetology track that we don't need to get on.
Yeah, sorry.
You forget we're literally licensed cosmetologist over here, okay, guys?
And there's certain things that just it doesn't make sense.
There's just things that, I mean, aside
water
from the
condition,
fact that,
nutrition, health. There's a bunch of crap. Plus, also, no offense, I don't think they're using high quality shampoo or even conditionings there. Sorry.
But
stuff like
so
that.
One way or another, she just, she's trying to pin herself as this good person, and I'm such a sweet and innocent saint, and I'm the victim. And
you ain't no victim.
Like, bitch, you ain't the victim. It's just So,
and using domestic abuse as a umbrella to hide under. If there was domestic abuse, you would have called the cops. He would have been arrested. There would have been proof of it.
You would have written about it in your diary, or
there would have been something. And my biggest issue with her using that is that's why people like her are the reasons why women don't speak. Even men. There are men out there that don't speak about getting abused.
Oh yeah.
I mean, yes, fourth wall broken. Yeah, women beat the crap out of men all the time.
Yeah.
It's not just it's a guy thing.
Yeah.
No, it
It
goes
just doesn't
both
get reported
ways.
upon. And that's
No,
why.
because guys don't think they'll be believed. They'll be
Yeah.
heard.
So,
Which sadly in today's society,
yeah.
I don't know, don't mind me.
Yeah. But basically, yeah. So after all that, after 3 days of trial, the jury came back 8 votes for death and 4 for life in prison. So of course, a mistrial was declared for this portion of the trial. And
I feel like it shouldn't have been, though. I feel
yeah.
like there was 8 that wanted it. Well, majority rules.
So unfortunately, again, it has to be a unanimous decision, which is kind of, again, annoying. I do feel like it could
Majority
otherwise be a
rules.
unanimous. Yeah. You think that's bad, Annette? Let me get into the second one. So the second go at the sentencing trial was about a year and a half later. So at this point, we're probably talking what, 2014, 2015, if we're talking a year and a half later, 2015. The second go around it, 11 for death, 1 holdout for life. Well, in the state of Arizona, the prosecution can only go for the death penalty twice. So at that point, it is up to the judge. So the judge sentenced her to her natural life in prison with no possibility of parole. And Jodi's defense team even tried to file a motion to dismiss all of her charges based on misconduct. The male attorney, I guess, tried to write a tell-all book, which was a whole different thing, and that got dropped. And then they tried to argue the child porn deletion by the prosecution from Travis's computer, and that was thrown out because they had no proof whatsoever that the evidence even existed. So yeah, Jodi was basically sentenced to live out her days at the Perryville Correctional Facility in the Phoenix, Arizona area. She was in solitary confinement for quite a while, and then on good behavior, she was later moved to a communal area where she could have a roommate and participate in, other kind of jail activities. She claims she's harassed by other women in jail. I can only imagine. And one of the visitors that came to see her, she asked them to tweet out that she had no hot water in jail. Once again, trying to play the victim card. I know, tiniest violin ever. So yeah, basically as of present day, Jodi is still in prison, right where she needs to be.
No, she needs to be on the
And
ground.
there was in fact justice for Travis. It's a shame that it had to take as long as it took to get said justice. It's a shame that he had to lose his life over what feels like something fairly stupid, just jealousy, realistically. And it's a shame that his name and character had to be dragged through the mud during the trial and the whole process of it. But yeah, so
one thing I want to know during this whole mess is like all these movies and documentaries that are made about her, how much of that money did she get?
Yeah, just
I feel like she
her
shouldn't
name
have gotten
alone.
a single cent.
I hope not. I hope it goes to Travis's family. That's the only thing that I can hope at this point.
Or not even Travis's family at that point, like, because it's not like he had kids. It donated to an actual organization for surviving victims or some type of charity that actually does something, and don't give her a damn cent. And that's what ticks me off. Is like, don't. I don't know. We can go on and on and on about what ticks me off about this case.
One way or another, she is right where she needs to be, and that is the story of crazy ex-girlfriend Jodi Arias.
So moving forward with our scheduling for trying to get more episodes out, I will say we're going to work on it a little bit more. Again, we have Valentine's Day coming up for our jobs, which is a very popular time because let's face it, guys want to look fresh. Then we have, after that is Easter. People really don't get haircuts for, St. Patrick's Day.
I just thought about an episode that we can do. I will be going to Disney the second week of March. We could do a spooky Disney rumors.
Oh, definitely.
I'm just saying.
Clearly, y'all, she goes to Disney. I have never been. So when it comes down to anything like Disney theme park related, she's the one we're gonna go with on that one. I'm just I probably won't even hop on those. I will just let her take that reins and just run with it because I'll just sit here and go,
You're like, ooh.
But like I said, we'll be touching on the Encanto conspiracies that I've been reading about. Also a few of my own, because I think I'm pretty sure I've texted you like anytime I found something new in this series. I'm possibly also going to touch on a Johnny Bravo conspiracy theory that I saw going through some random stuff. If you can think of any like cartoon conspiracies, because I've noticed people just like to hear those. Don't know why. Don't know
Don't
why you all
hesitate. Put
love
them
me
in the comments.
destroying your childhood. But yeah, let us know in the comments below. Also, you can follow us on our Facebook and Instagram. I promise they both now have the same name. It is
all of the information will be linked below in the description regardless.
yeah. We had a little misgo with Facebook when not wanting to give us our name. But follow us at the SpookyBarberBabes on Instagram or Facebook. Also, there'll be probably a Q&A coming up soon. Gonna have to figure out how we're gonna do that, but most likely that'll be done over on our Instagram account. She was saying I can actually tag her in. But again, we'll try to get some more stuff out to you guys on the YouTube channel. We apologize for the almost 3-month hiatus from YouTube.
But it's as she said, holidays, Christmas, and we put a lot of stuff out. And for those who have never edited a Zoom podcast before, it's a lot of work. A lot of work.
Roughly, just to explain this to everyone, where you're probably getting like an hour and a half worth of content. We started recording at 2:00 and it is now 5:00.
Yeah. So not to mention the photos, the all that.
There's so much that's actually in turn with all that it's just like, takes
a lot of time to do.
You get like half of what we recorded because of pauses. The fact that her and I both say so many times, I stopped trying to edit that out on the podcast because I say too much. Or I apologize, y'all. I am a human.
The fact that I had a script today probably helped, but
in the future we'll be working a little bit more on me not being sick when we record, and also trying to get more of Briana in the folds. Just bring her on in. But also we want to say thank you to everyone. I know I've been saying it multiple times on every episode that I've made on the podcast so far this year, but thank you. We genuinely mean it. Without you guys, we probably would just look like a bunch of nutcases sitting on our computers talking about murder all day.
Oh wait, that's not what we do?
I mean... But anyways, thank you all so much for your support. Just even telling people about us, it means a lot.
If you are watching this version on YouTube, obviously subscribe. I think she said that, but also feel free to go over to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, etc., and make sure you're following us there. Leave us a review. You don't necessarily have to even listen to it there. It just helps with the analytics. For whatever reason, YouTube doesn't quite track all that yet. So
the only other thing I do want to put out that I don't know if Briana knows, but there is on Spotify a Q&A section that I literally put up a question at the end of every episode that gets put out with the episode, to where you can leave a comment on Spotify, and we do get those. If you leave a comment on any of our platforms, we respond. And then also recently Facebook did this awesome thing and started uploading our podcast straight to our page, which was one of the most epic things the podcast could have gotten, was that Facebook's like, oh, you uploaded an episode last night. Here, I'm gonna give it to you a day late, but here you go, you got it. And it's kind of cool. Sorry, I get excited. It's like, yay, new toy. Hate to say it, but that's kind of what like all of that is. It's like new toy. Don't mind me.
So with that, we are going to leave you for the evening. But as she said, we will catch you guys in the next episode, which is to be determined, but hopefully it won't take that long to be determined. Yeah.
We promise it won't be 3 months.
No, it won't.
It probably will be a couple weeks. Be safe as always, again, from the
Be
person
healthy.
who, if I say, from the person who literally would not wish this cold on their worst enemy, be safe. Even if you don't believe in the vaccine and masks and all that, at least just be safe. Wash your hands, do your part. Don't sneeze in somebody's face. Don't cough in somebody's face. Be a normal human being, please.
I said this to a gentleman the other day, and you know, I said this to a guy the other day, and it doesn't matter if you're left, right, up, down, red, blue, purple, yellow, green. There is no political party associated with being a good person.
And there's also no political party in being dead either. So,
well, that too.
There's that too. On that note, have a good night, everyone.
Bye, guys.